Have you watched the 2012 movie, The Hunt, starring everyone's favorite Mads Mikkelsen, the guy famous for playing Hannibal Lecter and Grindelwald? The movie was about a respected teacher's life, which gets upside down when a young female student mistakenly accuses him of doing something inappropriate in front of her. He was hated in the community by everyone and treated as a monster. His life and respect were completely destroyed just for the sake of the crime he never even committed. Now, this is just a fiction, just a film. But what if something similar happens to a man in reality, taking away almost 50 golden years from his life under the charge of a crime he never even thought of committing? That's exactly what happened to a common man, Glynn Simmons of Oklahoma City 48 years ago, and for the rest of his life till December 2023, he was in prison. If you ever think life is unfair, much to your disappointment, maybe you are right.
Welcome to Who the F***? Please subscribe to our channel and get to know everyone you really need to meet.
Who do you think you are?
Glynn Simmons was born on November 13, 1952 in Harvey, Louisiana. Currently, he's a 71-year-old African-American man standing at 5'11" with brown eyes and a bald head. He has a son and a daughter with his beloved wife, Brenda Simmons, and also has several grandchildren who now live in Louisiana and Oklahoma. Glynn and Brenda met each other when they were teenagers, fell head over heels in love, and tied the knot in 1972 when they were just 20 and 19 respectively. Their life was simple yet joyful, like every common man leads his life in America, with Brenda working as a nurse and Glynn as a mechanic and truck driver. But life had a different plan for the Simmons family. Their world went upside down in 1974 when Glynn found himself facing a murder charge for the death of a liquor store employee who was shot during a robbery. Glynn insisted he was at home with his family when the crime occurred, but an all-white jury convicted him and he was sentenced to death. Later on, though, his sentence was changed to life in prison due to his repeated pleas and extremely good behavior. But was he really involved with that crime in any way? Did he even know about the crime or any of the victims? To know the answer, we need to rewind to the fateful night of December 30th, 1974, in a liquor store in Edmond, Oklahoma, where something terrible happened. It was a day just like any other for the store clerk, Carolyn Sue Rogers, and a customer named Belinda Brown. They had no idea what they had coming just a few moments later. When everything in the store was going smoothly, there came a couple of armed, mysterious men to rob the store and the money. When the store employee, Carolyn Sue Rogers, tried to stop them, it burst into a sudden outbreak of violence and bloodshed that claimed her life. She was just 30 years old. The customer, Belinda Brown, who was 18, also got injured badly, traumatizing her for life. After this shocking event, the local police took serious action in finding the people responsible. They worked hard, searching all over the state to catch the criminals. But as there weren't sufficient clues, the pressure on the police was getting higher. The whole community was shocked and terrified, and everyone was demanding justice. 4 days after the crime, the police interviewed Belinda Brown, the witness. Despite her best efforts, her memory of the event was unclear due to the trauma. She believed that trying to remember more details would only blur her memories. In the meantime, simultaneously, the police were also looking into another murder case. On February 4th, 1975, 2 bodies were discovered in a rural area outside Oklahoma City. The next day, Leonard Patterson was arrested and confessed to the murders, and his brother Delbert also admitted to being present there, but denied any involvement. But things took a dramatic turn when further investigation into that crime revealed that the Patterson brothers had attended a party at Dorothy Norris's home in Oklahoma City on January 19, 1975, just 20 days after the liquor robbery. Now, Dorothy Norris was the aunt of Glynn Simmons. Glynn was 22 years old then and had recently moved from Harvey, Louisiana for work. Since the Pattersons had been at the party, the police gathered everyone else who attended for lineups, including Simmons. Police also brought Belinda Brown to 8 separate lineups on February 8, 1975 for the identification of the robbers. And unfortunately, traumatized Brown pointed out Glynn Simmons and another person, 21-year-old Don Roberts. The police arrested them right away, but there wasn't much solid evidence against them. So based only on the eyewitness account from Belinda Brown, a surviving customer, they were charged with capital murder. Simmons and Roberts were suddenly amid life-altering accusations which they'd no clue about. The courtroom where justice is supposed to be served turned into a tragic spectacle for Glynn Simmons and Don Roberts. As we examine the trial's details, it becomes clear that the case against them lacked substantial evidence. Instead, it relied heavily on the uncertain ground of eyewitness testimony. Belinda Brown played a crucial role in the prosecution's case. Despite the trauma of the incident and the fact that human memory can be unreliable, her testimony was treated as if it were an unquestionable truth. Brown told the jury that she identified Simmons and Roberts in lineups on February 7th and 8th. She stated that aside from Simmons and Roberts, she did not recognize anyone else. The defense challenged the reliability of her testimony, highlighting the absence of supporting evidence. Simmons countered the accusations by testifying that on the day of the murder, December 30th, 1974, he was in Harvey, Louisiana, playing pool with friends and had never been to Oklahoma until January 5th, 1975, when he visited his aunt. To strengthen his alibi, the defense even presented 4 witnesses who confirmed seeing Simmons in Harvey on December 30th and 31st. Despite this effort, the jury was swayed by the prosecution's narrative. Very ironically, the jury members voted for Miss Brown's version of the case, disqualifying all the solid alibi of Mr. Simmons. Despite its flaws, the jury was convinced, leading to the conviction and death sentence for both Simmons and Roberts. But Brenda, Glynn Simmons' wife, knew that her husband could never commit any type of crime because he was not that type of a man. She pledged to support him and fight for his freedom. Regular prison visits, letters, and phone calls became her routine. Despite facing discrimination and stigma from her community due to her husband's conviction, Brenda pursued her education and career too. Working multiple jobs, she managed to raise their children alone. Brenda earned a bachelor's degree in nursing, a master's degree in public health, and a doctorate in health administration. Eventually, she even became a professor at a local university and a consultant for healthcare organizations. On the other hand, inside the prison, Simmons, who maintains his innocence, fought relentlessly for justice. Simmons received help from the Oklahoma Innocence Project, a nonprofit that works to free wrongfully convicted individuals. Additionally, people worldwide, moved by his story, supported him with donations, which he planned to use for medical bills, a car, and to visit family and friends after his exoneration this year. Imagine this scenario. 2 men wrongly convicted based on one eyewitness's testimony. Years later, one of them, Don Roberts, passed away after 33 years, finally experiencing the freedom he was denied. Glynn Simmons, however, remains in prison, caught in a seemingly never-ending nightmare. And this kind of wrongful conviction is nothing new. In 2000, Jane Dorotek was also wrongly charged with murdering her husband Robert, despite witnesses seeing him alive. She was convicted in 2001 based on blood and DNA evidence. In 2015, DNA testing revealed foreign male DNA, excluding Jane. Blood evidence was never tested and lab workers had a history of errors. In 2020, her conviction was overturned, and in 2022, prosecutors dismissed the case due to new evidence. Or you can take another case from 1990, where a man named Jeffrey Mark Descovich was wrongly convicted of Angela Correa's murder based on a coerced confession. Detectives manipulated him during a 7-hour interrogation. DNA evidence not matching Descovich was later linked to another man serving time for a different murder. If you do just 2 minutes of research on this, you will find countless examples of wrongful convictions of the legal system since 1805. But Joseph Norwood and John Cole, the dedicated attorneys Simmons, worked tirelessly to uncover the original truth in Simmons' case and offered Simmons a chance to be more than just a case number in an indifferent legal system. Here, things took an unexpected turn though, as they found the victim's sister and the prosecutor, who once argued fiercely for Simmons' sentence, were doubtful about their own judgment. Quite a twist. In 1995, Robert Milfeld, the prosecutor in a trial, wrote a letter to Glynn Simmons that revealed that Belinda Brown had been grappling with guilt all these years over her identification. She was haunted by the fear of accusing the wrong men and wanted time to reflect on her recognition overnight. Millfeld also shared in a letter from March 1995 that Belinda Brown had described the killer as a tall and heavy individual, contrasting sharply with Simmons' actual stature at the time. In a surprising turn, Millfeld went beyond his role and wrote letters supporting Simmons' parole to the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board. However, Simmons' release was consistently denied because he refused to admit responsibility for the murder. But in 2023, justice finally smiled upon Glynn Simmons, marking a transformative year. He became the most recently exonerated death row survivor in the country, listed as number 195 by the Innocence Project. Belinda Brown also later identified several men during police lineups. One of the men she pointed out was Delbert Patterson. Interestingly, Delbert's brother, Leonard Patterson, later confessed to the murder near Oklahoma City. This newfound information became crucial for Simmons' legal advocates, Joseph Norwood and John Coyle, who sought a new trial. The case received intense scrutiny in 2023, particularly regarding the issue of eyewitness misidentification, a factor that hadn't been thoroughly examined in 1974. Simmons' wrongful conviction primarily relied on flawed evidence, especially the unreliable testimony from Belinda Brown. Reopening the case almost 50 years later raised doubts about her identification of Simmons as the perpetrator. District Attorney Vicky Zemp-Bahena, formerly associated with the Oklahoma Innocence Project, recognized the need for a new trial due to suppressed evidence. In July 2023, Judge Amy Palumbo overturned Simmons' conviction, leading to his release after spending 48 years behind bars. In September, District Attorney Bahena also chose not to retry Simmons and dropped all charges. Simmons spent the longest time in prison among those who were later found innocent, showing that when justice takes too long, it's like there's no justice at all. His story also shows that eyewitness accounts can be wrong, and a national registry found almost 920 cases where people were wrongly convicted because of mistaken identity since 1989. This calls for a closer look at how the criminal justice system makes decisions. On the other hand, Simmons was diagnosed with liver cancer while in prison. Now, he's undergoing chemotherapy, and he remains optimistic about his health and future. He expresses joy in his newfound freedom, enjoying activities like fishing, watching movies, and listening to music. Fearless and ready to face any challenge, Simmons sees himself as a survivor and fighter who refuses to give up on his dreams, even in his 70s. So, do you believe in the power of redemption? Most importantly, what's your take on the loopholes in the judiciary system? How do you think those can be taken care of? We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. You can also share if you've ever encountered a similar injustice. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated. Thanks for watching.